Good afternoon, respected Chancellor Ma'am, Pro-Chancellor Sir, Directors, Vice-Chancellor, Pro-Vice-Chancellor, and all the eminent panelists, my dear colleagues and students. I welcome you all to this discussion on the Great Indian Budget 2022. Before we go ahead, let me sum up in what is meant by a national budget, since we have a lot of students attending this session. A government budget is usually a document prepared by the government or any other political entity presenting its anticipated tax revenues and proposed spending and expenditure for the coming financial year. In case of India, February every year we wait for the finance minister to announce the yearly budget in the parliament. This year it was announced on the 1st of February. Union Budget 22-23 provided a roadmap towards economic stability and growth. Finance Minister Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman presented the Union Budget, which focused on key infrastructural measures, inclusive growth and sustainable development. With the pandemic still a larger part of the background, the budget showcased strategic areas of growth. There was a strong focus on capital expenditure to set the foundation for India's growth over the next 25 years. The extension of product-linked incentive schemes, encouragement to digital banking, digital currency and payments, as well as the introduction to the next phase of ease of doing business are just a few of the major reforms announced at the Union Budget 22-23. We have all a lot of questions in our minds, predominantly focusing what will be the impact of the Union Budget on our pockets. To decode these nuances today, we have eminent industry experts from different sectors who will be sharing their views and thoughts. Let me present to you Dr. M.K. Badri Narayanan, the head of School of Management, Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science, a deemed to be university, who is also moderating today's session. A little about Dr. Badri Narayan. He is a learning and development expert with passion towards teaching, research, and practice in the areas of strategy, innovation, entrepreneurship, social enterprise, and sustainable development. He has about 2 decades of experience in the L&D, social enterprise, and management research. Over to you, Dr. Badri, now.
Good evening, everyone. I deem it a privilege to be here today and to present this panel discussion as a moderator. This budget, as the economic survey has given a prelude, an agile approach, which normally we hear it in the IT sector, and now the country speaks about an agile approach to development. And we are in the era of sustainable development goals, and any development has a sustainability focus. And this budget is more digital focus as well, and it is linking the skies on the earth from agri drones, Kisan drones to cryptos. A lot of interesting facets are there in this budget, and I'm very glad to have this panel here, which is a mix of experienced professionals from different industries, from the domains of infrastructure, from deal making, private equity firms, and there are experts from agriculture, green business enterprises, and we do have a stellar panel, I should say, which is going to share with us the views on the different aspects of this budget. So I welcome you all to this panel discussion, and I would request Professor Ami ma'am to introduce our panel experts. Probably both of us will introduce a couple of the panel members so that we can start the discussion with you. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Badri. So the first panelist of the day is Dr. Saril Thapsi, who is a project manager, Agriculture Department, Government of India, Government of Kerala. Passionate executive with the Government of Kerala, who has been actively working with farmers for more than 25 years. Actively involved in agribusiness promotion with small farmers. Has served as a project leader, Small Farmers Agribusiness Consortium, Administrative Building, Agricultural Urban Wholesale Market, Trivandrum. A prominent alumnus from the first batch of MBA 1996. Welcome, Mr. Salil.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Next on the panel is Mr. Sankar S., who's Executive Vice President, FIEC Engineering. He has 24 plus years of experience in diversified industries, specializes in project management, planning, controls and performance measurement. Serving as a director of Region 8 at the American Association of Cost Engineering, India. Served as the Chief Operating Officer of Carley Infra Private Limited and as Project Manager at ITC Limited. He has also served as a completed Advanced Management Program in Public Policy at ISB Hyderabad, a prominent alumnus of HITS from the civil batch of 1994. Welcome another alumni. Then last on my list is Mr. Varun Sridharan, another alumni from the Institute, who is a founder and technical director of Green Environment Innovation and Marketing India Private Limited, a startup green company headquartered at Chennai. A promising young entrepreneur featured in UNDP FICCI list of innovative startups in the environment space, which is a burning space these days. A civil engineer who is very passionate about water, environment, and sustainability engineering. An expert in wastewater process design and treatment technologies, sustainable green building concepts, energy and water audits, design and integration of water efficiency solutions. He has also work experience in business development and consulting of various water and environment projects in Middle East, India, and Africa. Welcome you all. Over to you, Dr. Badli, for the rest of the panelists.
Thank you, ma'am. And I do take the privilege of introducing Mr. Rohit Nahar, a dynamic young chartered accountant here with us, who is a graduate from Christ University, Bangalore. And he has been serving the Kindle as a regional tax manager, and he has served as a full-time director at ENY. He is very active, and his areas of interest and expertise include capital markets and taxes. Welcome you, sir, to this session. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much.
And I take the privilege of introducing Mr. Sai Sundar, who is the Joint President and Head of R&D at Lara Capital Management. He has a very unique background of confluence of three major disciplines: economics, engineering, and law, a kind of a dream combination coming together in a single personality. His specializations include strategic thinking, government and stakeholder relations, and risk management, to mention a few. Mr. Sai Sundar has a lot of experience in the financial sector, and he will also be enlightening us on the macroeconomic aspects of this budget. So welcome you, sir, to this session. Looking forward to listening to you.
Pleasure is mine, sir.
So taking it forward, I would request Amy ma'am to initiate the discussion, giving the opening question.
Thank you, Dr. Badri. But instead of giving a question, what I would suggest is let us have individual views on, general views on the budget from each one of the panelists, and then you can take on the specific questions.
Great.
Right? So I think it will be good to start with Mr. Salin Tapsi, and then, you can take it forward with each of the panelists, talking in general about the budget. What do they think about it? Over to you, Mr. Salin.
Thank you, Dr. Ami. A very pleasant good evening to all of you. I'm very happy to be back with my Hindustan family. This budget is to be read with three other significant developments. First is the geopolitical tension in Ukraine and Russia, rising crude oil prices, then the fear of US Federal Reserve enhancing the interest rates. So the pandemic, Omicron, is subsiding. But there are two ways for an economic recovery impact of a budget. And first is pumping money into the hands of people for creating demand. In US, they have started this activity. But because of frequent lockdowns, there is a fear of inflation, more money chasing less goods and services. So there is a real fear of inflation. So the second strategy is capital investment by government and public sector and private sector. As per the words of Nirmala Sridharan, madam, it's the virtuous cycle of private investment and public capital investment. In this budget, selected the second pathway of investing in capital investment, creating infrastructure. But for the common man, his wings and dreams are on hold. So for the next 1 or 2 years, they have to strive hard to reach the pre-COVID level. But the PM Gedishakti project for infrastructure creation, that multimodal connectivity in terms of roads, railways, airports, ports, waterways, and mass rapid transfer systems and logistics infrastructure. This is the government policy of capital investment for fueling growth and economic recovery. There are assumptions on digital currency. Government wants to create a new digital currency for India, and government is focusing on ease of doing business and ease of living, and they are coining Amrit Kal. A better future is expecting us with all this infrastructure, and there is news of 400 new Vande Bharat expect, and the main focus is on capital investment for an economic recovery. Thank you, and back to moderator.
Dr. Badri, over to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Salin sir, for comprehensively knitting the important elements together. And there is a natural progression from your this thing towards the expertise of Mr. Sai Sundar. With his confluence of engineering, economics, and law, connecting both the economic survey and this budget, the positive news is like, in spite of the pandemic and the post-pandemic revival, there are hopes in numbers in terms of the growth which the country has shown, and the potential which has been also endorsed by the World Bank, IMF. So may I get your views, Mr. Sai, on our fundamentals? Is it getting stronger? Do we continue to keep our hopes high on this macroeconomic indicators? Can you please share your views? Of course, with your general comments on the overall budget.
Thank you so much, sir. Good evening to all the panelists and all the participants. Okay, so the budget here has set a view for the next 25 years. That is what the Honorable Finance Minister told in the budget. And apart from that, the capital expenditure has increased by almost 25% base rate, which others wouldn't agree. They would say it is 5 to 6%. But as in, if per se by numbers, our capital expenditure has increased by 25%. And there is a view to develop things with respect to EV, and inflation is on par with the underlying situation. And we have substantial amount of investments in infrastructural methods, and startups have there is ease of doing business, as my co-panelist told. There is ease of doing business which is being promoted. So the key focus is on ease of doing business, reducing the tax rate, reducing compliance, and I feel the government is more focused on not having people jobless as such. The very fact that we are going into elections into 5-6 states and the tax rates weren't reduced is a clear indicator that the government is looking at the next 25-30 years and not just at the next election. That was one indicator which most of the analysts were looking into. And moreover, the NPAs are on par. So I would say for the next 5 years, as in, the underlying situation should improve, and the capex in place and the fiscal deficit being regulated in the right way by our experts and the people at the finance ministry, things should fall in place. Budget, of course, is a visionary budget. Of course, not as it cannot be as good as it was in 2017 or 18 because of the underlying situation. COVID, the Ukraine-Russian war, the Fed having a hawkish view on the markets and the economy as such. Depreciating rupee, all that taking into consideration, the budget is of course visionary. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. And I think you have asked us to keep the hopes high. And uh, one mixed bag is the tax announcement taking from where Mr. Sai left. This is flowing towards Mr. Rohit. And your opening remarks, probably I will come back to you in the round two about specific questions. But you are a digital man, and digitally you are empowering the country with your kindred. So how are you looking at from the space where you are about this budget?
So I think if you had to just break down the budget, right, one for the economy and one for the citizens, I think Mr. Salin, Mr. Sai covered it well. But in terms of economy, the key themes are the long-term growth, right? And I think there the budget has fared well in terms of focus on the capex, right spending. Again, there are mixed views on the privatization of a lot of the public enterprises, whether that is towards the common welfare or do we see much more privatization coming in. But I think the right spending, keeping the fiscal deficit within the planned margins, right? Those are indicators that, again, it is a long-term approach that the government's following, which is very, very positive to hear. Coming to the citizens, right, and more individualistic and at a personal level. And generally that comes to the tax domain, right? An individual is all coming to me and like, so I get nothing this year, right? I'm working double the shifts, earning same money. I'm not getting any relief on COVID, right? I've lost jobs, but I don't get any benefit from government. So a lot is expected, or rather left wanted from a citizen's perspective at a, I would say at a personal level on a short scale, but at a large scale, the budget, I think, fares well on the economy side.
That's a great remark. And from you, I would like to move on to Mr. Shankar. I would like to reserve Mr. Varun's comments because it's sustainable. Sustainability is something uska soch baad mein aata hai. So it's not that we have, it's more futuristic. So I now go to Mr. Shankar, sir. How do you see an Atmanirbhar Bharat in the making through this budget?
Yeah. I think there is the priorities have been set right. If you ask me, about whether in terms of infrastructure or in terms of an inclusive development as its focus, and also the the productivity enhancement, which they are, the budget is mentioning. Now the goal of that Amarkal was an interesting thing. I think at least for 25 years it's a target. When you reach and India becomes 100 years of an independence, at least there is some goal which is just which is fixing so that you can run towards that. And that way, it's it's good. And it's a good budget as far as an infra is concerned. And from this side of it, and it's obviously it's a general practice that when there's a recession, mostly the government spend a lot of money on an infrastructure to stimulate the economy. This which we have seen doing a Great Depression to one, even in the recent 2008, where when things of the after Lehman Brothers collapse and all that. The important thing is, as Rohit pointed out, is about the right spending and the right focus. And are we choosing the right sector, as well as are we doing how controlled the the spending is, and what is the value as a country we get to see. The investment on an infrastructure not necessarily need to boost the economy or bring any country back, but for a post recession, I think it is an post COVID, I think this definitely will help to stimulate an economy. But at the same time, what also we need to look at it is a country to become an by 2050, let's say that there are projections say that we will be becoming second the largest economy in terms of PPP. Then we should have a very program management kind of an approach, in the entire thing, rather than we are good in event management as a country. We do good Kumbh Melas, we do a big events, but when it is pulling it up a thing in a very systematic way, will be doing it, or it will be an it's a thing, unless otherwise you create the capacity, then it will be yes, we might spend money, we might create an non-durable infrastructure, and also when there are the money could be spent on in specific areas where it will be only for some maybe few guys might become rich, but the inclusive development and distribution of wealth, uh, that should be the key, is in my opinion. And that way we have got a huge challenge when you look at it the way the current program management capability in the country compared to the West. And otherwise, in terms of spending, it is good. I'm also from the industry, so we will get some good jobs, and we will get some good. Lot of guys will make money, and it will stimulate definitely in the economy. So that's what I think. But still, there are many fundamental issues, the things which we need to be definitely we need to work on. Otherwise, realizing that dream might be a challenge, and we will miss that opportunity if you don't have that program management kind of an approach, and bring that within the next 8 to 10 years. Then we won't arrive at the global stage, is what it might be. Yeah.
So thank you, sir. And it is now our understanding, like the directions, the paths have been set, but this agility with responsibility is something which is also seen in the budget. That takes us to Mr. Varun. Before that, Ami ma'am, you have something to say.
Yes, I have a live question from one of the attendees. I will not say it a question, but maybe, just a sentence on which probably you guys can comment. The general opinion is that this is yet another budget which is pro corporates and not pro the common man. Any comments on that?
For the common man, they expect some extra income by increasing some subsidy or reducing some tax, so that he will get some extra income. But there is a chance of inflation, so they have focused mainly on capital investment, that public sector and private sector together. So somebody can attribute that to promotion of private sector. It's public and private sector together partnership.
So what I understand is probably it is seemingly a pro corporate sector budget, but indirectly it will be helping our pockets also, a common man's pocket also. Am I right?
Yes, since growth is there are better chances. Now, other panelists can also come.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, it's also about who is expressing the opinion. I mean, if you are in the right wing side, and if the left wing is in the government, so they'll say it's anti-people. The same way now it's another way. They'll say that it's anti-people budget. I mean, see, in general, I have not seen. I mean, when I did my public policy with ISB, I had an opportunity to interact with some of the very top-notch bureaucrats in the of the country, and a few politicians also. And I feel, all are very concerned. Yes, there are a lot of challenges in the thing. And I don't think anything is they are very anti-people, anti-poor, and, they wanted to rob people and all that, which I don't agree. It is only an statement, made, when you are in the other side. That's my, personal opinion. And everybody is very concerned about the country. And I would rather put it in a different way. The guys who are not very concerned about the country or the middle class. I also belong to the middle class, right? I think they are not, they are totally out of touch with the reality, and I don't know how many of them have understood the country. So when you say a common man's budget, it is not an, if you are not getting some tax benefit, your income tax is not reduced and all that. I think what do you call? It's much more than that, right? I mean, I won't buy this argument. Where, I mean, from both the sides. I mean, I don't think it is just a corporate budget, right? And it is not that it is totally excluding everybody and make people to live in poverty and all that. I don't agree with that. Yeah.
Well, another sequel question to the same thing. I agree that, every time we get a new union budget, such comments from some people always come that this is a pro-corporate budget and not a pro-common man budget. Point of view taken that, we common men probably look for an exemption in the tax slab or the lowering of the tax slabs. Another question that has come up is the allocation for education and health doesn't seem to be sufficient in this budget. What is your take on this?
Can I comment? Yeah, so of course, yeah, the allocation is not enough, because I would say the budget allocation for R&D right now is about 47 billion, which is about 2-3% of our GDP currently. I might be wrong with the percentage numbers, but it's about 2-3% of the GDP as far as my understanding is concerned. Whereas where United States of America is spending about 600 billion of their exchequer into R&D. Japan is spending about 152 billion. Only when we spend enough money in R&D and into the universities will wealth creation come into play. And I agree with your point that yes, this budget is more pro-corporate than pro-people. And there is a good side to that also. When the tax rates aren't reduced, we aren't promoting a lazy population. When the tax rates are reduced, the population tends to become more lazy. And there is a very typical example with Zimbabwe. As in 2012, when from 1993, they have a history of reducing their tax rate. And in the year 2012-2013, their currency had to be discarded as is. They right now use US dollar. So the spending in R&D is not substantial, is what I would say. $47 billion is not enough. The government has to spend on universities, has to spend on R&D, and the fiscal deficit numbers, which is right now at 6.9%, as opposed to what was projected in the previous budget to be 6.8. That 0.01% for people like us, the middle class or the working class, wouldn't matter much. But when you look at the macro, when you look at a country as a whole, the 0.01% actually it brings in 40,000 people would go unemployed. 40,000 people are going to go unemployed with this 0.01%, which is a pretty big number. So the government should have focused a little more on job creation, should have focused a little more on the infrastructural investment, as in for the short term. This budget, like I told in my previous like in my opening arguments, that yes, this budget has a vision for the next 25-30 years, no doubt about that. But for the short term, for the infrastructural investment, like as in last year, about 70 Air India got disinvested very recently for about 178 crores or so. So, but that investment doesn't go into capex actually, as in the government accounts. It is not capital expenditure. It is actually repayment to the bank, because we have disinvested completely. It is a private investment. It is not a capital expenditure as the government is accounted. Investment into R&D is very, very, very important. We will develop into a very good country over the time in terms of economy, from a developing nation to a developed nation, only when the government spends money into universities and not into capital, not into industries. If you look at the US or the Singapore, the government is investing in universities way more than what it is investing in industries. the development is phenomenal there. Investments have to go into universities, not into industry. Thank you.
I agree here. If we invest more on the universities, then we are promoting the younger generation more towards the R&D, more towards innovation, and probably, we are developing the entire nation with that. With this, over to you, Dr. Badri.
And I am due to receive opening remarks from Mr. Varun. And this budget is having some colors, especially the green color. And it talks about green in so many places, and green environment. Mr. Varun is the right person to have to tell us about the green shade of this budget. But what is your overall take on this budget?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I think I got a lot of insights listening to all of you, because I personally, or as a startup founder, what I look at from budget is there some real job creation happening? Because we're dealing with a lot of youth who are coming out, and do they have any opportunity in that way? And then, of course, the second one, which people are becoming concerned recently, which is the word sustainability and the overused word of green, and all these things are the ones which people are getting into it. But I think there is some structure coming into play, because I wouldn't go on future, but I would go back, because 2015 we had the launch of Startup India, and so personally I was there in that event. And then I had a couple of experiences along with the government. I was there as the BRICS Youth Summit, representing India as an entrepreneur. And basically we were trying to see what is that technology that we need in our country. So I had a chance to visit a smart city in Russia with a full delegation. So seeing all these things, incubator, which is kind of had different startups which was focusing on the country. I mean, Russia basically wanted startups to build their infrastructure, solve their problems. So I think these are the things which I was looking at from this budget. I think to a large extent, in terms of the sustainability part, was discussed in terms of EV. And today I'm sure every second startup in EV is getting money. I mean, they're getting investments. And the next part I see here is the focus on the energy, that is reducing carbon footprint. So which we are also seeing as a startup, that many corporates are changing their thought process, so ESG coming in. So I think this budget would focus or push towards that. And corporates also going into investing in environment related activities. And another personal experience that we've been having is we've been working with Jal Jeevan. That's where 60,000 crores this year is like 3 times from what happened in 2019. So our startup is one of the startup who has been funded by the ministry to develop a hardware for monitoring these projects. That is IoT based monitoring and all that. So last 1 year we have been deploying these technologies in different villages. If you have seen the Jal Jeevan dashboard, there's a lot of data which is manually entered. So today, there's also real-time data. So monitoring of these projects are very important. Infrastructure funding budget, very good to hear, but end of the day, is it monitored? So with seeing that, I feel there is much more of that kind of things that is required for real job creation. So I think job creation needed some more clarity. I mean, I think young people, youth will need much more clarity on that. I believe that coming days we would hear from different ministries as well, I hope. And startups, obviously the funds of funds. I think we always hear about that every year, 10,000 crores. When is it coming? How is it coming? SIDBI and all these things. So I think some headway has also happened there. There is this year a seed scheme which has started, 50 lakhs. You can request Startup India. So I think these are all initiatives which is going to benefit and have some clarity also on that. That's my initial thoughts.
So that gives us like a lot of initiation into areas which were all so far considered to be an annexure item, now coming into the main budget hits. So that really indicates a paradigm shift in the approach of the government, and having been included into the mainstream, I think it is here to stay and get more allocations in the future. So we are having a basket of opening remarks now. I think we can now move to the specific domain questions, and a lot of interesting facets in this budget. Starting with one exciting word, the digital rupee. Something coming, lots of tweets, lots of excitement, and there was actually a different contrary understanding or a trending which was happening before the budget was announced. It was almost ruled out, like the government is nowhere considering to talk about cryptos, and this thing get lost kind of argument was going on. But to everybody's surprise, it has come up. I would request Rohit and Sai to give their views on that. Like, how exciting will this initial excitement, because it came to be like a breaking news headline, and thereafter a lot of silence and suspense about it. So how do you see this, Rohit, and is it coming? Should we be really excited about it?
Can I start?
Yes, please.
Sure, Sai.
Okay. So, as in, if you read the finance bill, of course, there is no word crypto in the finance bill.
Yeah.
The word crypto is not there. So, I feel this is mostly a vision for the digital rupee to be taxed at 30%. If at all people invest as a digital rupee, I might be completely wrong. I'm not a CA. I might be completely wrong when it comes here. But the word crypto, I did not find the word crypto in the financial bill at all.
Yeah.
This year. Right, and of course, the government has set up a committee to bring in regulations for crypto to be taxed in India. Right now, people enjoy this very fact that they are not taxed for the crypto gains in India. However, it has to be declared in the other sources. I think my brother Rohit will also agree with that.
Yes.
Okay, but the word crypto is not. So I would say people not to be happy, because crypto is not declared or defined as a digital asset. It has to be defined by the government, by both the houses. It has to be defined as a digital asset as in. So and taxing it at 30%, if at all crypto is declared as a digital asset, taxing it at 30%, I would say is not at all lawful. Me being a lawyer too, I wouldn't say it is lawful, because people, it is easy for people to invest when they are investing in equities, or say in speculative sources or in commodities. When it is taxed at short-term capital gains, which is 15% if STT is recorded, or at on par with their income tax rate if STT is not recorded, and saying digital asset will be taxed at 30% is not at all lawful. I'm using the word lawful here. So a lot of R&D has to go into this, lot of research has to go into this. It's a very preliminary talk. We're just 8-9 days into the budget, and a lot of clarity has to come in from the government with respect to digital asset. But my opinion is it is more in respect of the digital asset, what they're going to declare as the digital rupee and not as crypto, because the crypto bill, or as in the regulation with respect to crypto, is pending in front of the RBI committee, which has been set up 3-4 months back by the government of India. I think my brother Rohit would be able to give more clarity with respect to this.
Yeah, Rohit, I think you have to really defend this, and especially like there is a credit, all said and done, to the conservative approach which the central bank has towards the policies and the economy, which is appreciated to have given us the immunity from the global shocks. And are we now ready, having a positive growth pattern and a potential for growth and these many things coming in? Are we ready for a crypto? And like the disappointments and the anti-climax announcements about the 30% on digital assets. So it's your take on this.
So I'm gonna apologize in advance. This may be a slightly longer dissertation than I had expected in my head. But coming to cryptos and taxing of cryptos, right? The base we need to understand is, first, is the government acknowledging a technology, acknowledging the existence of a certain investment option? The answer to that is yes, right? They are not closing their eyes and doors that this is the traditional business model, how it's going to work. So that's great. Secondly, taxing cryptos has nothing to do with the legality of it, which I think demands some clarification. What the government is doing is, if you're investing in something, making money out of it, give me my share. Okay. They've still not confirmed whether investment in crypto is legalized. And the reason for that is regulating something like a crypto is much more difficult. Regulating something that is on blockchain, that is in the technology space and in the heart of it, is much, much more difficult. And that's the reason regulations around cryptos are far and few across the world, right? Today, a crypto or something like an NFT can be created by anyone, your next door neighbor, right? With a good understanding of technology. Now, what is the taxing of cryptos that's come in? So the government has defined something called a virtual digital asset, which is a VDA. Now, VDA in its definition takes into consideration your cryptos, your NFTs, any other digital currency, right? So that way the definition is to include a asset category which never existed in the past. I couldn't tax if an asset category never existed. Coming to where this is heading and the rupee aspect of it and more the economical aspect of it, right? We are, I think, in cricket, and I'll take an example, right? IPL is world renowned and we're doing very well. But even today in IPL, there is no free trading of players outside the bidding and auction like the English Premier League. The reason is we are still evolving in that space, right? The auction mechanism, the buying and selling of players, we're still evolving. IPL has a short history, EPL has a much longer history, right? And there is a definitive plan in many of the committee meetings where they say that eventually we'll get there. Today, it's the bidding process. Similarly, we are trying to get there with the rupee, digital rupee. We are trying to create our own rupee rather than regulate this monster of cryptos, which is a different dragon altogether, I would say. So we are creating our own rupee. And there, the safety that comes in is it is regulated by RBI. So you wouldn't see one day a Bitcoin having a 30% increase and next day a 40% fall, where a small investor is losing a large chunk of money, because all said and done, the cryptos are susceptible to a lot of high bid HNIs manipulating it. So for a common man, right, some form of regulation of that cryptos is what the rupee, digital rupee is coming to. As RBI regulates it, you won't see those steep increase and fall that you see in other cryptos. So it's a great movement. It is moving towards a government acknowledging technology and accepting it. Implementation, I'd like to stay far, far away from it. I'm not convinced today per se of how this would come about, the mechanism of it, the blockchain, how that would work. But I would just leave it with the thought that cryptos are getting taxed at the highest rate because cryptos is seen as an elite asset, not an asset for someone who's a basic earner. So I'm going to tax the elite at the elitist rate. Yeah. And all this said and done, cryptos are still not regulated, are still not legalized as a form of investment. I'll take a pause now.
Yeah. And you made it very simple for us. And thank you so much. Ami ma'am, you wanted to say.
Yes, Dr. Badri, I have, two participants who want to ask a question. I will ask Mr. Murugappa to ask his question first. Mr. Murugappa, then Mr. Suresh, you also had raised your hand. Do you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. I have one question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Ma'am, when I discussing with our colleagues and organization, so we feel that this budget may be planned the copy of other developed countries. It is not 100% planned for our India only, but they have considered Indian growth and Indian economy also. But it is copied from other countries also, like that they are saying. Whether it is correct or not, it is.
That's a tough question.
Sorry, sir, for giving the
Constitution of India, we have role models. We cannot deny that. I think Sai Sundar is ready to take this.
Okay, yeah. I'll answer the question. So I just did this, but okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So the very fact that you have to understand that the constitution by itself is a replica of 5-6 countries put as a whole. So the budget also we would have replicas as in, but of course, I agree with you that this budget does not simulate to the scale of our population. We are the largest populated country as we speak. Of course, people will claim that China is more populated than us, but China is an older country than us. We are just 75 years old, if I'm not wrong. Okay, so this budget as in is a simulated budget compared to others. But at the same time, the vision is different. The vision is different. We do make mistakes. Mistakes are there. At the same time, positives are also there. I would advise everyone to stick to the positives, and the negatives will be addressed in the next budget. Go forward with the same hope. That would be, being optimistic is the only option we have right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. So let's not be worried about observing the benchmarking the best practices and bringing the best things to our country. And let's move forward. Now, borrowing one word from where Rohit spoke, I'm going to take a dive from the intangible to a tangible, elite matrimony at the agri space. I would call drones coming into the small and marginal farmers, Kisan drones flying around our fields in the villages. It's something like a sci-fi for many of us. And here we have a man who has spent 20 years with small and marginal farmers of a state in India. And sir, how excited are you about this? And do you think this is as good as a crypto, a Bitcoin in the agriculture space? Like, what is your take on that, the challenges and possibilities?
Thank you, Dr. Badri. In SFAC, we are already promoting many startups and farmer producer companies and MSMEs in agriculture. Already there are many startups, mainly engineering brothers and sisters. They have started a company and registered as a startup with us. They are already using this drone technology. There are many features which can be suited to agriculture, mainly for spraying that nutrients, fertilizer, then that mapping of this area for insurance and providing subsidy during natural calamity. We should have a map of this area. So after this calamity also, we will send a drone in this flooded areas based on a previous landmark, that previous mapping, we can correctly identify the crop loss, that is loss specific areas. And in Kerala, there are times when we used to give subsidy for not cultivating. In places like Palakkad, if it's a drought-prone season, we will say to farmers, don't cultivate. So even in losses, we can spray using drones. There is a bacteria called PPFMS to reduce the crop loss at the final harvesting stage. We can give a spray. And there is a good chance of developing a gig economy around agriculture. Even school student can rent a drone and within 1 hour he can complete the spraying. And we have tried it many times in our various agriculture operations. And now we are preparing projects to get this drone subsidy for the startups and farmer producer organizations. We are establishing agro-service centers in FPOs. There, this drone will be offered as a service by the startup, or they will directly purchase a drone and operate for the farmers. But that's only possible in monocropping situations like rice land. In Kerala, we have mixed crop where is coconut, banana, and everything is there. For monocrop, it's very successful. And spices also in monocropping situations, we can use drones. But for natural calamity, even there is a project Fasal by Government of India. with satellite map, you can map an area and predict how much yield we will get from that area. But that can be correctly predicted with latest AI models using drones with more accuracy. So many startups are coming up and we are encouraging them also. There's a good chance of the young engineers starting this as a service, and for young generation, more people will be attracted to agriculture because of these high-tech machineries. Thank you.
So that was an interesting inference. I would rather say like from the gig economy, which you said, that is a very interesting possibility, and we would all love to see that, and more reverse migration happens, and people are able to strengthen the fields with the technology. And thank you, sir, for those views. From there, I would like to go to the infrastructure. Here we have Mr. Shankar, sir. How do you see this mission of building a stronger nation towards this Amrit Kal with infrastructure? And as a person who has spent more than 2 decades in this and several construction majors, like how do you see this? And also with the AAC, active presidentship in AAC, how do you see that this becomes a reality? Do you see any challenges, or what are the areas in which we need to focus to make this a reality?
The challenges won't be in, it will become a reality. It can become a reality. I mean, if it is not, as planned or as it happened, also, it will become a reality. I used to say that every project comes to a logical end. The logical end is either it gets completed or it will be dropped in between. So that way, if you say that whether it will come or not, yeah, if you start, it will come. But there are huge challenges, in terms of what do you call the land acquisitions and and there are n number of things. If you open an MOSPI's website, the report, they point out some 10 areas where which is causing all the project delay. And there's one thing added last year. In fact, there was no change in that. All 10 remained 10, and despite all our actions. But the last year, one is added was COVID. Other than that, I didn't see any improvement. And this, when it comes to in terms of an efficiency of an execution, is what should be a focus. Like the way NSA has improved under the minister, right? They've become really a very efficient organization. In implementation. But still, they themselves have got a challenge. He himself says that, hey, I need a lot of help from Niti Aayog and so many other guys because I'm not able to execute fast. Now, the why are few concerns in the sense like when the especially in urban infrastructure, right? I would say that a lot of emphasis on one thing which I would say that on a metro rail, let us say for an example. See, metro rails are all a colossal failure globally. They're all a very, and more so in India. If you look at it, our ridership is, despite all this, one of the lowest in the world. And if you go and see the data of the ridership per kilometer, almost all the metros fare very bad compared to what is there in Japan or what is there in any other city in the world. That's because in our last mile connectivity is the biggest problem. So without addressing that, when we keep actually spending on this, is one thing we need to look at it. And it is becoming an what I call a sort of a status symbol. If you don't have a car, two people are earning, and if you don't have a car, people look at it like, what is this? The same way, if you have a city and if you don't have a metro, that is how it started becoming. And is it really required? This is one example which I am telling. And second is about our focus is on a city or an urban center. We have one of the created some of the worst urban centers in the world. There are, out of the top most 15 polluted cities in the world, 14 are from India. See, that is a very horrible thing. In the sense, like our developments are all actually is not on a very planned development. That you see, if the moment slightly rain comes, now all you guys are in Chennai, you're all going in boat, right? I mean, earlier used to go in car and other things. Now we are going in boat. The and moreover the resources are very stressed in an urban center. So the solution, if you keep pumping in money in urban centers, is not on the right thing. Rather, creating a more urbanized environment, across the country, which will also make the migration to the cities less. It will less stress on the cities resources, and also when ease of living and the development goes outside. Now with the digital technology and other things, which would be a possible thing, where that could be a focus, instead of spending too much on the urban centers. If that focus goes, then you are only very selected set of people who benefit, and I don't think it will be a very right approach. I mean, if we go in that direction, and I am a very strong critic of our program management maturity, because see, the all advanced economies, when they've advanced, not just like that they've advanced and they've robbed us and they became rich, and also they are very very scientific when it comes to program management, and they have understood the importance of a program management. I mean, if you look at it as in countries like in US and UK, and even a small country like Australia, we produce one Australia every year, we proudly say, but the maturity of an effective planning and implementation, we are far behind. If you ask my personal opinion, I used to say always we are 50 years behind all these countries when it comes to an implementation of a program. We have a 20% of all our report says a 20% cost overrun, but actually we are about the 50% of the projects are not even reporting. So if you actually go and see, 64% is a cost overrun, and some of the public projects and even private projects are also not so great. Now, how do we actually have a system at a national level which is able to handle this? If you look at it in US, the OMB, Office of Management of Budget, and which is actually directly reporting to the US President, and that's where they have the bill and the control. And the same way, if you look at it in the UK, it is in ICAM Treasury, it is under the Department of, I think it's the Finance Ministry, right? And that is where the control is. And here, if you look at it, we have got an MOSPA which is monitoring the projects, which they are only monitoring the projects. Nobody listens to them, and they don't have any control. And we have got a PMG, Project Monitoring Group, which is Prime Minister Chair. But if you look at it, it's again a panchayat. This says, okay, in your place there is a problem, this is a problem, and we do a panchayat. When when we move from that, is what is an will be the success. And if you don't move from there and make it from a very scientific thing, it will become very difficult, because we are spending huge money and building the national asset. That is one part. I mean, benchmarking the organization alone is not important. We also copied, as he says, not only budget, we copied so many things. We are formulating a national NICPP. We are making to make a project management as a chartered profession. I mean, the whole body of knowledge, if you look at it, is all copy pasted without even giving credit to them, and it is not putting and it is not positioned appropriately. It is positioned under quality control of India. There's a Quality Council of India, which doesn't have a team. Won't have a team. It's only trained people, and some of you guys will make money. And if we have an address on one very important thing which makes everything falls, makes us fail, which is the Prime Minister's attempt on the Gati Shakti, which is about bringing some n number of institutions to through a portal. I didn't study, to be very frank, fully about Gati Shakti, but when I look at it, if it is only from a portal, I am not sure how it will address that institutionalized dyspraxia what we have got in our country in program implementation. That is an, dyspraxia is a neurological disorder. A person will look normal, but when he cannot do even a simple job in a coordinated way. So, how, I mean, if that is not addressing this, I think we will be spending money and all that will happen, but I am very doubtful, whether we really will become a very developed economy at any point in time. And now we are speaking about the same Gati Shakti. I won't say it's an equivalent. There is a huge difference. There's an organization called ITRC in UK. That is Infrastructure Transport Research Consortium, which is a body set up by Cambridge, University of Cambridge, Oxford, Cardiff, Newcastle, Southampton, and all of them put your entire the natural infrastructure, different thing, whether it is on a road network, to a water or a wastewater, into a very complex model. And for the policymakers to take a call on when energy increases, population increases, or your energy efficiency technology comes in, or your how it's going to affect your all other things is a national model. I don't think, to my knowledge, we have any one such institutions in our country so far. And I mean, it's for I would request each and every one of you to look into what is ITRC and how they do it. That is where we should focus towards. When we benchmark, we should benchmark these sort of things and bringing in coordinated effort. Any spending on education and everything, education is not the only thing which is important for a person. I'm sorry to say this. Many times, too much of an education makes a person useless. That's what I think.
I'm sorry, Mr. Shankar. I have a live question coming in for Mr. Rohit. Mr. Rohit, a participant is asking that this budget focuses on long-term growth, but the huge borrowings is what is worrying them. So who will bear the brunt of these huge borrowings? For Mr. Rohit, specifically this question.
Sure. Thank you. And I think whoever's asked that question, kudos to them. They have done their homework, right? So yeah, I think the borrowings today, if we look at the revenue expenditure itself, the borrowings at interest stand at about 40+% of your revenue expenditure, which is massive. And that is a worrying concern. So the way I look at it is today, and we look at the income side and the expense side of the budget, right? The income side today, a lot of it over the last few years have been funded through privatizations, through dividends from RBI, and hence a lot, and the budget rate, and rather our tax rates have not been impacted. Though we've spent on COVID, we've increased our expenditure. It worries me too, honestly, if I'm to be honest, because the revenue expenditure requires a constant flow of income, which we'll have to look at new avenues once the privatization dries up to some extent. Yeah. So fair question, but that does put a limitation on your tax rates going down. That does create an increased pressure on revenue from the budget. My limited point is it's not a worrying concern, but yes, a concern all the same.
Thank you, Mr. Rohit, for such a short and crisp answer. Badri, you can continue.
Just from what Mr. Shankar was telling, in between I got a thought. With his permission, if I can direct it to Mr. Varun. Like in the race of development, we have created some scars, and there is a realization that we need to treat those scars and not to create more scars in the future. So do you see this initiative of green sovereign bonds, raising funds and deploying it in creating a circular economy as a step towards that?
Actually, I've got some signal issue here.
Yeah, can I repeat? Now am I audible?
I think Mr. Varun is having some network issue at his
Yeah.
end. So let us take this question to Mr. Salin, who's been working with the agriculture domain.
Yeah.
Probably he can. I think in the meantime, Mr. Varun's network issue will also be solved, and we will have his expert views also.
Yeah.
Is this regarding
Am
debt?
I audible?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay,
Yes,
very
you are
nice.
audible.
Okay.
Yeah, I missed the last portion of your question, Badri. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. The thing was like now the realization towards creating a circular economy. Do you see this uh, announcement of green sovereign bonds as a step towards that, and the operational aspect of it, as Mr. Shankar said about the infrastructure and its challenges and implementation to realize the development which is envisaged. So, do you see that this is going to be a challenge, or how this is going to be a possibility? What is that? He has given a benchmarking as a solution for infrastructure, and how do you see this green sovereign bonds activating a circular economy?
Okay. So I think first of all, I agree with on the point that these infrastructure projects require a proper monitoring, or the need for even the I think the green bond or green fund. Today, I think the monitoring is still not there. How do you define it as green? But I am seeing a lot of changes, because today, we have been associated with some of the premier institutes in the country, like IIT Madras, Roorkee, and different IITs who have got these funds to solve problems. So I mean, which are societal problems. So we are associated with IIT Madras Economy and Sustainability Group. And what we see here is that there is focused projects that is required, which actually defines what is green in that. Then these, and I think still today we don't have a clarity on that. When it comes to Jal Jeevan Mission projects, or even the sanitation, we stop very early on implementation. Okay, we try to, at least today, I think the change is that there is data collected. Actually, one of the projects that we are doing right now is for Amrut, where around Gurgaon in Haryana, we are connecting the data of wastewater that has been created.
I think there is a network issue with Varun.
Yes.
So let's have Mr. Salin's view, and we'll come back again to Varun.
Yes.
I'm so sorry, Varun, to put Mr. Salin here.
And regarding this finances for investment, government is promoting green bonds and then blended financial instruments together with NABARD support for green energy, green and clean energy projects. Government is promoting that blended financing. That NABARD, National Bank for Agriculture, will be promoting co-investment for startups. Now there are many environmental problems because of this waste from paddy fields. They are burning this waste. So for creation of energy, this can be used. There are many available technologies. For funding such technologies, government is encouraging startups. And for funding such technologies and startups through NABARD, government is able to develop some co-investment models for blended financing for sunrise sectors. So such green bonds and this blended finance will encourage startups to come with latest technologies for clean and green energy projects. Back to you, Dr. Badri.
Yes.
Mr. Varun, you can try if your network is okay now. We would love to have your views on this.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Never mind. These things will happen, definitely.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. So I think I just heard what Salin sir had also mentioned regarding how startups will benefit. But I think to add the point on how educational institutions need to be funded, and also that bringing out innovative solutions. I think that is the real. I would say being part of a startup that got government support, as well as we received an educational institute in validating a solution for the country. I think that is a real gap we are seeing today. Any product you bring it from China, you repack it and you do it, you become a startup that can scale, like a hockey stick. So I think that needs to change. I mean, I can give you a reference. In 2016, I was actually one of the entrepreneur represented in a committee for representing the scientific advisor. So the question asked me was, what is the problem you're facing? So I'm facing the government is the problem. That's what I told them. Because, when I go to any agency, they say that, we work with the country, in Germany, they have better sensors, or, or they have something better. So I think this is the problem that we have been seeing. And then today, things slowly change, and now people are talking about Atmanirbhar, but on ground, is it really happening? This is the question that we need to really ask. Smart cities, we are associated with Gift City, which is India's first smart city. We monitor on real time the water quality, because the commitment given to the end user is that you can drink the water directly from the pipe. But do you have a technology that supports for doing that? When we started working, we realized that, there is no validation done for any technology. There's nothing done on that. But, okay, tomorrow Schneider would solve the problem, or some big company would solve the problem. So this is the attitude which needs to really change. Then only I think these funds can be routed to Indian companies. Smart cities would really become reality, than just putting a lot of street lights and cameras. So I think institution also has to play a very important role, define the problem very clearly. So now, just to add, right now there is an India Water Challenge which is coming up from Ministry of Housing. So actually we have been giving a lot of inputs, because we are a company which received money from government, and then we made a product, got it patented, deployed across the country. So now they are also saying that we need data of how much wastewater is generated in the city, how much water is treated in the city. So with that, 10% of recycled water is going to be supplied for drinking to everybody in that city. That's the future plan. So this has happened in Dubai. We don't talk about all that this happened in Singapore. It happening in the US. But that is what is really required on the ground. And right now, Bangalore Sewerage Board supplies 10% of sewage water that is treated from 4 of their big treatment plants, and is given back for drinking. So it comes along with Kaveri, so it's all Kaveri water. So that's how it is treated. So I think that is the kind of changes that is required to monitor these funds. Otherwise, again, it will be 50 years behind. I agree with you. Yeah.
I agree with you, Varun. One more thing that I think personally, I may be wrong. We make very good schemes, we make everything, but we forget the vast population that we have. So, whatever things we have to make, we have to consider our numbers. I may be wrong here, but I think that is where we lose the most. And this discussion has been so immersive, I forgot the time actually. And I want this discussion to continue on and on, but I know all of you are very busy. So I will ask one last quick question to all of you. What challenges do you foresee for the new financial year that could curtail or put a spanner in the wheels for the much touted economic growth? Can we start with maybe Sai?
Thank you, ma'am. So I would always advise that you have to realize that budget is an event of tradition. So every year when we declare the budget, or when the Honorable Financial Minister declares the budget on February 1st, it is just an event of tradition. Right? So hard work pays at the end of the day. And all students at the end of the day would realize that hard work is what pays off at the end of the day. Okay, so right now what I would try to summarize is, this particular budget did not focus on STT, which declares the overall turnover of the traded volume in the market, and then LTCG, capex, inflation, NPA, infrastructural methods, R&D, job, fiscal deficit. These all were not covered in the budget as a whole. But the vision is strong. 25 years from now, as we say, we would be a stronger economy, and the biggest asset we have is the population. No one can deny that. The population as a whole is the biggest asset we have today. Okay. So I would actually encourage the students of university to start investing on startups. The university as a whole would invest on startups as a it would be the biggest investment, and the uh, clean energy is one of the focus of this economy. Constraint of space, setting up charging standards, and all these things are some parameters which the students should focus on today. And energy as a service or battery as a service, battery swapping should be the focus of the projects of these engineering students. I would like to conclude my speech here. Thank you so much.
Dr. Badri, you may continue with the other speakers, for
Yes,
their closing remarks.
I think from Sai, we will go to Rohit, then go to others. Rohit, your concluding remarks.
Sure. So I think budget is what we do at the start, right? A lot of things keep evolving. Obviously, COVID remains one of the deterrent. We are hoping there is no other wave that comes in. The signals of the third wave seem to create a positive outcome, a shorter wave, economy back on its feet quickly, which is a great positive. So I think COVID remains one concern. Second, to me, the big ones are the LIC IPO, again, generating enough revenue for the government is where that gets placed, whether the monies come in. The other smaller ones I wouldn't really like to deep dive into, right? But the government here has been agile, and that's the big take from it. There were constant revisions, constant orders being issued all through last year, not just on the health sector, the economic sector, the financial sector, the tax sector, all of that. So that's a great positive, and I would probably rest with that, saying that the budget is great, but the solace for me is that the government is more agile. And we are hoping as these deterrents come in, the government should respond. I'll just take 30 seconds more on the question I was asked earlier, right? And that was an interesting question. I did mention that interest were at 40%. That is the interest payouts of the budget. And I was just doing some quick reading while on the side. So the interest is actually at 42.7% compared to the revenue receipts in FY23. And someone said that that's concerning. The last time we were there was financial year 09. So that's the highest since 09, but we've been there and we've done well since then. So yes, the interest is high, but we've done this in the past and we'll do better even now. Thank you.
We will manage.
Yes. हम होंगे कामयाब.
Exactly.
Great. And Varun, can we hear your remarks?
I think overall, my closing remarks would be that I think the focus was on the digital economy, an economy which is into transforming into a sustainable and all these factors. So in that way, I feel this is a good budget to start with on this context. But I feel job creation clarity for common people is required. I think that hopefully, even I believe if corporates can take up pressing problems of the country and solve that would create a lot of jobs. So hopefully not only startups. So I think I feel it's a good budget, and I feel there will be more follow-ups for this in the coming year. Like it's a ritual, like a tradition every year. So thank you.
That gives us a fingers crossed wait to see what's coming up. And as Sai said, we will continue to work throughout the year to see some changes happening. Going to Salin sir for your concluding remarks, and I will request Shankar sir to continue his conclusion after Salin sir. Please, sir.
Budget is a statement of potential, but that real actual performance matters. So that we can predict only after the next financial year how we manage our human capital with all this capital investment. That will provide this Amardakal, what's for future of our country. That will decide the future of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I know Shankar sir has a very important point to make, which combines all these comments. Shankar sir, over to you.
So in fact, I'm going to repeat what everybody said, because since being last, they've all touched everything. In fact, I totally agree with Rohit's thing. Like in next year, the biggest challenge would be, the pandemic. I mean, if it, still it is not gone. That's one thing. And the second, as I said, right? I mean, this is a thing which is combining Sai as well as Sadiq. He said, people are our asset. Yes, I agree. But at the same time, we can be an asset heavy, but we can be very poor also. I mean, there are few states, if you look at it, asset rich, like Orissa, but they are not very, this state. I mean, the thing is, to in the same way, how our the asset, human assets are converted into one human capital. Like you need a capital to convert an asset into one economic prosperity. And there are millions of guys who have been pushed into poverty in the last 2 years, and at least 20 years of the work is gone. Gone into brain. That is the biggest challenge. When how do we bring those guys? Lift back from the extreme poverty. I think that is the biggest challenge, not only for next year, for till the time we bring those guys, it's going to remain as the biggest challenge. That's my concluding remark. I mean, if it is really concluding something, yeah.
Thank you so much, all the panelists. Overall, what I now feel, after being into this discussion is that, I am a little hopeful and the budget seems to be very progressive. But yes, the last point that Mr. Shankar raised is a very valid point. That because of the pandemic, there have been a lot of people who've lost their livelihoods. So we have to put our focus on them to bring them to the mainstream. So that will remain a challenge, of course, for all of us. Over to you, Dr. Badri.
So I would like to use the phrase cautious optimism was the reflection of the panel. They are optimistic about the budget, and definitely they have made us understand a very important point that it requires effort to reach this destination. A destination has been identified, and it is not all about fixing the destination, but you need to gear up to travel towards the destination by taking the right route. I think as a higher education institution, Hindustan has this responsibility of equipping the demographic dividend of this country and empowering them with the necessary knowledge, with all such expertise available around. And I'm sure that we will do our best to build the human capital for this country, and all of us would walk together this marathon and reach the Amrit Kal and be hale and healthy to see this Amrit Kal in our days. I would like to thank each panelist to have brought in a lot of frank insights. There was no hesitation in calling a spade, and that actually gave us a lot of insights and gave us areas to be happy about and areas to be cautioned. Areas of caution. Thank you so much, and I hope everybody would remember this discussion. It has been very informative. A lot of facets have been touched upon. We wish we had more time, but this also gives us a hope that we will continue to interact with many of you in subsequent sessions to take the thought process forward, so that we could discuss more on the nitty-gritties of putting things in implementation. And let's join our hands to congratulate all the panelists for being here and having shared their experience and wisdom on this. So budget, though it is a yearly affair, it gives us an opportunity to discuss about the country, the efforts, and what lies next. And this budget has certainly given us this responsibility, and the Great Indian Budget we would get an opportunity to discuss again with better results in our hands, and we wish a hopeful year 2022 for this country and all of us as well.
Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today for this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Badri.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Special thanks to HITSA for getting us the senior alumni.
Exactly. It was a pleasure having all the alumni here.
And thank you so much for being here, and Mr. Sai and Mr. Rohit for all the inputs. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.